everyone, and welcome to my office in Tel Aviv. My name is Ayelet Tsabari. I'm the author of The Art of Leaving. You can see behind me the American edition, and I am so excited and grateful to Humanitas for publishing the book in Romanian. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the book, about the art of leaving, about writing it, about living it. In the art of leaving, I try to trace my life from childhood to motherhood, and to sort of explore how living with grief at an early age informed the choices I made in my life, how growing up Yemeni in Israel against the backdrop of war and conflict and my turbulent army service informed and affected my life as an adult. I was born and raised in Israel to a large family of Yemeni descent. My grandparents immigrated in the 30s to Israel. And I was an avid reader and writer from a very, very early age. But in all the books that I loved as a child and as a teen, I never seen a character like me, or like my parents, or like my grandparents. Even the books they assigned to us in school always told Ashkenazi narratives and focused on the European story. And in history class, very little was mentioned in terms of Mizrahi history. And when I say Mizrahi, I mean the Jews who came from Arab lands. So much so that by the time I graduated from high school, I could cite the dates of European immigration to Israel in great detail, but I knew next to nothing about my own past and my own history. Not seeing myself in Israeli literature and in the books assigned to me in school, it told me that my voice and my narrative and my history doesn't matter. The title of the book is The Art of Leaving. And I think people often ask me about it, like why, first of all, is it an art? No, I don't think so. But I think at the time when I was a young woman traveling, I believed that I perfected it into an art. But of course, leaving is a messy, fractured thing. And I've never actually managed to make it into an art. And I think there are a few reasons for the leaving. And one of them is that feeling of being marginalized in Israeli society, but also losing my father at a young age. Because I think when you lose a parent at a very young age, when your identity is still very much entwined with theirs, it feels like you lose a homeland. It feels like your sense of home is fractured. So it made it easier, maybe, to take off and seek another place that I could call my own. A lot of the work of this book was done in patching together those many stories that I wrote. And I think the idea for that structure came naturally, but it also made sense to me because it's more true to life and it's more true to the way memory works. And, I knew I had many stories to tell. I lived my life making sure I have stories to tell. And the idea of actually writing from my own life came to me late. I used to be a fiction writer. I'm still a fiction writer. I'm working on a novel now. But when I came to Canada and I started writing in my second language, somehow writing fiction in English seemed inconceivable. And because I was feeling very comfortable in the act of translation at the time, because everything was translation to me, I was living in translation. The idea of translating lived experience into art, life into stories, was something that happened very naturally and made a lot of sense to me. So I started just writing anecdotes from my own life, writing stories from my own life. And then in the editing, I had to make it into a cohesive whole to sort of try to decipher the narrative or the larger story that emerges from those little stories that I was writing. The great Toni Morrison said that if there's a book you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. As an Israeli of Yemeni descent, I wanted to complicate and expand people's view of Israel and of Jewishness and what Jewish could mean or could look like. I wanted to expand the frame of that single Jewish story, you know, by writing Mizrahi stories, by creating a Jewish heroine whose skin color ranges from olive to brown, whose grandparents speak Arabic and not Yiddish. I created for myself those characters that were missing from my childhood stories, that were missing from the Jewish narratives I later found in English. Characters like, you know, my grandparents and my parents and myself. I wrote the book I wanted to read. Thank you so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed the book. Have a wonderful day.